responsibilities as guests in this territory. Those of us gathered here today and our absent allies know we have a historical challenge and Herculean task before us. We must stop the nuclear weapons manufacturing initiative, now loudly supported by seemingly all levels of government and elected representation. We have a challenge, but we also have an inspired strategy for victory. To successfully stop the mission shift at Los Alamos National Lab from being implemented, we must follow the example set by Pope 340 years ago. In the face of oppression and a threat to the indigenous way of life, Pope brought together all the pueblos from the Hopi Mesas in the Rio Grande Valley up to Taos and the Precures Mountains. We must replicate his cultural unification and focus of energy. We must set aside our distrust of others and band with all sorts of non-traditional partners. Just as the unity of Pueblo peoples in their fight against the Spanish technology to regain their lives and lands, on August 10th, 1680, we must reach out to others and send our runners to untie the final knot on the Yucca cord. Our opponents are the executive branch of the United States government, the corrupt Congress, the military intelligence industrial complex, capitalistic greed, ignorance, and arrogance. Many of our selected leaders, by supporting the lab buildup, are valuing profits and jobs over lives, quality of life, and long-term sustainment of life. The colonialism of the Spanish crown in 1598 is a legacy that the United States is perpetuating. We can attribute much of the government's justification for shifting the mission of the Los Al Lab to our current national policy of strategic dominance. The United States maintains 800 to 1,000 overseas military bases in 120 countries. We maintain nuclear weapons in NATO host nations and other allied countries. In our triad defense posture, we also keep nuclear weapons in the homeland, on the seas, under the seas, and possibly in space. I'm a member of the international organization, Veterans for Peace. We are 35 years old, a nonprofit, a 50c3 organization dedicated to world peace, disarmament, demilitarization, publicizing the true cost of war and militarism, and social justice as it pertains to veterans and others affected by military activities. Currently, we are working on many initiatives that include saving the VA from privatization, ending JROTC in secondary schools, preventing the expansion of the siting of the Space Command in New Mexico, and the expansion of F-16 fighter jet training areas in southern New Mexico. Cleaning up toxic waste sites, foreign and domestic, polluted by the defense industry, and stopping pollution by the Defense Department and its agents. We encourage your membership in Chapter 63 in Albuquerque or Chapter 55 in Santa Fe. You need not be a veteran to join us and assist us in our efforts. Together, we hope to be able to reverse the de facto policy of making New Mexico a military sacrifice zone and stopping the further colonization of our state by the Defense and Energy Departments. The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RECA, of 1990, which did not include one single New Mexican, will sunset in 2022. We urge you to support us and assisting in the passage of proposals that are now in Congress, H.R. 4890 and SB 1040, which would correct this injustice and give proper compensation for downwinders and the miners of New Mexico. We all know the legacy of the Los Al lab. Native Americans were enlisted during the declared war to work as support staff for scientists engaged in designing and producing 3 nuclear devices. Due to operational concerns, the Native employees were unaware of the effects that their labors would contribute to the destruction of Mother Earth, Father Sky, and the Japanese people. The current situation is far different. No one enlisting in the construction of facilities proposed or the operation of a newly expanded manufacturing effort should have any doubts about the potential of their fruits of labor. The possession of nuclear weapons is immoral and soon to be illegal under the international agreements framed by the General Assembly of the United Nations. September 26th is the International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons each year as declared by the United Nations General Assembly. In my view, the contemplation of use of nuclear weapons is insane. The detonation of nuclear weapons is a crime against peace and humanity, not to mention the destructive effects of the environment and the risk of the extinction of all life forms. Climate change and nuclear annihilation are the 2 existential threats to human life. Unbridled capitalism, with its rapacious consumption of natural and human resources, is a runner-up to this contest of masculinity. The Departments of Defense and Energy and Interior are the prime movers in the initiative we oppose. The Rio Grande chapter of the Sierra Club, Pajarito Group, is a leader in this fight by identifying and emphasizing the potential adverse effects if the proposed lab build-out were to occur on the quality of life within greater northern New Mexico region. The detrimental impacts on transportation, medical, education, housing, and other aspects are myriad, irreversible, and serious. The group highlights, among other reasons to stop the lab's build-out, is that the lab expects the Los Alamos community and the northern New Mexico to support all financial extraneous needs required by the huge increase in staff and infrastructure. The Los Alamos Study Group is identifying and highlighting the many reasons the lab should not produce plutonium triggers for nuclear bombs. We rely on their careful and informed analysis. Our job is to form a coalition of individual citizens, organizations, and businesses to oppose the so-called PIT initiative. If Pope, under the oppression and duress of the Spanish crown and millennia of indigenous infighting and rivalries, could form an effective coalition 340 years ago, certainly we can organize and take an effective action to save our way of life. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so I would just like to take a moment